What's up? Ghost Fictions is here, and we're back again. This is the first part of a story where Izuku rewound everything and was the son of All for One. All for One breaks out. He destroys everything. He destroys his son's life. He passed everything on to him, trying to make him into the most powerful weapon. Izuku doesn't yield. And so he rewound everything. But before we start, please consider subscribe to the channel and give this video a like. Don't forget to check the description for more informations. Now, let's get into part 1. A dark green-haired teen walks down the street, phone in one hand as he looks up the latest news on heroes. A young girl with long wavy silver holding his other hand as she nibbled on her candy apple. Eri looked up to her green-haired savior. She didn't know much about the boy. She knew he was a villain, but would a villain save a girl he knew nothing about? This boy was a mystery. Even though he was a villain, he was never cruel to her. He was never used her for anything. All he did was care for her. It was as though he knew everything about her. Deku nai Eri said, finding a picture of the boy on a poster on a light post. The emerald green eyes looked at the girl and then followed her line of sight. A missing poster of a boy he once knew. That boy was long gone. He needed to be. It was best for everyone. He ripped the poster off, squashed into a bowl and burned it with his quirk. Izuku had been kidnapped, had quirks forced upon him, forced to watch his friends die, forced to see his master meet an untimely death with his mother, and many more he cared for fade from existences. All by the hands of his father. The worst villain of them all. All for One. The villain had forced all his quirks onto him, trying to turn his son into his ultimate weapon. Izuku didn't let him succeed. He had been chosen to be the successor of the greatest hero, but he was never able to fill his shoes. And so he came back. He rewound everything to the way it once was. He took away every memory of everyone in the world, making them forget that they have already lived the 5 years. If he were to give back those memories to many people, it would have like looking into one's future, but to the people who knew him, it would be a life that had him. Izuku had become a hero to save people, but he couldn't save them, and so with his second chance he would protect them in the shadows. His first act was to save Eri. He retained all his quirks from his previous life and took Eri from Chisaki. But this night I won't die. He still had one for all, but with everything reversed, there would be two to hold the power. Mirio was bound to inherit it. His plan was simple, he would change everything, and so no one would suffer. With Eri by his side, a medical mask on, they found themselves at a scene where a villain was attacking. He remembered this as clearly as yesterday. Actually, he was reliving this. Kamui Woods about to capture the villain and then Mount Lady swooping in and knocking out the villain. Izuku chuckled at the sight of Kamui Woods feeling down. If he only knew that them both would be a power couple in just a year. Izuku had work to do today. Bakugo was going to get captured by a villain today. He needed to bring Eri to her school. He helped the girl with controlling her quirk. She had enough control over it to interact with people. After dropping of the girl, he went about his day. He was the head of a villain organization known as the Drifters. They were not petty villains. They were villains with a reason. He accepted people who had been wrongfully accused, those they were looked down by the society, the quirkless, those told that they were villains because of their quirks, those that didn't have a fair life and so forth. Those that didn't want to be villains but had no choice to become one. These were victims of this superhuman society he wanted to protect. Though he may say villain, they were pretty much a vigilante group, but they were villains nonetheless. Taking the law into their own hands where the heroes can't venture to. Izuku wondered what he would do for the day. Maybe visit his mother. Though he says visit, it was mostly meant turning invisible and walking into his mother's hospital room and watching her. As creepy as it may seem, it was the only thing he could do to be close to her. Ever since he ran away, his mother had broken down and hospitalized. She had slowly been getting better, thanks to a friend she made in the hospital, and of all people it was Todoroki's mother. Both were getting better. Izuku teleported into the room, placing a bundle of fresh flowers in the vase. His mother was with Rei Todoroki when he did. "Inko, don't you think you should tell someone about this?" Rei said, looking slightly terrified. No, it's fine. There's no harm done," Inko replied with a smile. Izuku stood in a corner and watched the two women chat. "Who do you think is sending you these flowers and in such a way?" Rei asked, still worried. "I'm not sure. But I have a hunch, but it can't be true." "Mom, your hunches are always right." Just then. "Yo Inko, I'm here." Mrs. Bakugo comes slamming in. "Is it okay to let someone like that in a mental hospital?" Izuku wondered, holding his chest. He thought his heart was going to jump. "Put. Boy Rei-san, nice to see you." The green-haired woman chuckled and the white-haired smiled gleefully. Izuku noted that Bakugo and Todoroki were male versions of their mothers. Though Todoroki still had half red and a blue-green eye and a scar. If his whole head was white and both eyes gray and had no scar, he would be just like his mom. "Oh, seems the mystery man brought you flowers again," said Mitsuki with a sly smile. "It's not like that," Inko says. "Then who keeps bringing you flowers?" she asked. "I think it's Izuku," Inko says with a smile. Ray looked at with a smile and took her hand. Mitsuki looked hurt. Izuku did run away 2 years ago. Ray knew how she felt. Her eldest son did run away as well. "Bakugo is going to UA next spring, isn't he?" Inko asked. "Yeah, the brat's headstrong on being the #1 hero. I believe my youngest is also going to attend," Ray said looking down. "They would have been good friends," Inko says sadly. "If you only knew Mom," Izuku thought. Izuku left before it could get any more heart-clenching. He teleported himself to a cafe. He checked the time a few more hours before he could go pick up Yuri. He sighed and decided to find something to pass the time. He decided to check the news on information about what his group was doing. First, a pop-up said that the villain organization known as the Drifters were responsible for the murder of a serial killer. The second said that the Drifters had brought down a mafia gang slaughtering all members. Izuku didn't like killing, but he does his research and had already lived this life. He knows what these people do. So he sent his group after them. Many of them had suffered from them as well. It was cleaning the streets and revenge. Izuku made to always track every member. Most were not active because they were under his protection. These were people who had lost hope in everyone and the family of his members. The people in his group were of all ages. These were victims of society. His complex brain could easily track every single one as easy as breathing. He still needed to mark a few more people. His friends and also family. It was finally time. Izuku was on his way to pick up Yuri. But then he realized something. He sighed. Yuri will have to wait a bit. He took a detour, ran on cue, an explosion came. Izuku ran to the source. He mingled with the crowd and finally found his way to the front. He saw his master's skinny form standing and holding onto a lamppost with a horror-stricken look on his face. For a second Izuku felt like running to him. But he held it together. Bakugo needed help. He pulled his hood up, donned his mask. It was simple. Just a plain white mask with black eye holes. Simple was best. Sometimes the scariest things could be the most simple. The hooded boy walked out and all eyes turned to him. Izuku wondered what quirk he should use. He had so many he didn't know what to use. Self-destruction, he thought. This villain had already tried to kill him once. And his reason to be a villain was a crappy one. He walked up to the villain. Everyone gasped and began to panic. Bakugo was confused. The villain swung at Izuku. The moment his sludge hand reached the masked boy, it exploded. The villain exploded. The slime didn't seem to move, it slowly began to change back into flesh. It was dead. Everyone stared in horror. The hero stood frozen. Bakugo sat frozen and looked up to the boy. Izuku's palm began to glow and he struck Bakugo in the chest. There were screams. As Bakugo screamed in pain. Izuku's sixth sense quirk told him something was coming in fast. With one for all he jumped onto the building and looked down to his master. He felt disgusted with himself. He just killed someone in the open. All Might launched at him. Izuku shot a blaze at him. It wasn't intended to hurt him, just the wall as he teleported away. All Might turned back to find the mark of the Drifters on the wall burning with bright flames. The crowd and the heroes looked at it horror. A burning uppercase D with a feather intertwined in it. All Might went to the blonde boy who was staring at the mark. He quickly ripped his shirt to find the mark tattooed onto his chest. All Might knew immediately to put this boy and his family under protection. Izuku sighed and walked out the alley he had teleported himself to. It was close to Yuri's school. He walked on over and was met with a smiling bundle of joy. "How was your day?" he asked. "It was great. What about you?" she asked. Her face changed immediately. "Deku did something bad again, did you?" she asked. "Yes, you could say that. I had to save a friend though," he defended. "No, Deku is a villain, but a good one. I can tell." Izuku looked down at the girl. He sighed. He got down to her level. "Yuri-chan, promise me you won't become like me. I want you to grow up and be someone good. Is it okay if I become a hero?" she asked sheepishly. Izuku couldn't be happier. "Yes, Yuri, I want you to become a hero," he told her with a smile. Izuku and Yuri lived in a simple apartment. None of the members knew who he was. No one did. He was a ghost. He was safe. Yuri was safe. As long as he stayed low. Izuku latest steed was biting him in the neck. Yuri was asleep. He summoned a sentient being to watch over her so he could for walk. Bakugo was mad. He was saved by a villain and then marked. His mother was freaking out. She had gone to visit the shitty nerd's mom, and when she got the news she went crazy. For some reason he found a familiar feeling coming off from the villain. It was as though he knew him from somewhere. He couldn't concentrate on his work. He just felt really mad. He looked for something to do and decided to go for a walk. Izuku didn't bother about bringing his mask. He was tired and didn't want to see that thing at the moment. He still needed to mark more people. His friends, All Might, Aizawa, his mom, Gran Torino. He felt drained. It was pretty dark. Izuku leaned on the railing of a bridge and looked out. Deku? He heard a familiar voice. Bakugo was just walking and then he saw him. Curly green hair. Freckles on his cheek. Face facing nothing, staring out at nothing. Bakugo froze. It was the shitty nerd. He didn't know what to do and so he just called out to him. Deku? Izuku mentally face palmed. He was cornered. Shit. 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 He thought. I shouldn't hand come out fro this stupid walk. Damn it, I'm not ready to see Kachin. Hell, I'm not ready for anyone to recognize me. Shit. What should I do? I should run. Should I teleport? No, that will confuse him. I'm still quirkless to him. Bakugo shouted and turned the boy around. Bakugo froze when he saw him. Face to face. It was him. It was Midoriya Izuku. Why yo? Izuku said awkwardly. Why yo? Bakugo replied. Yo? Are fucking messing with me? Where the fuck have you been? Why are you two out late? A gruff voice came from behind them. Both turned to see a scruffy man in need of sleep. Bakugo feels as though he somehow knew this man. Aizawa was doing his rounds when he suddenly heard shouting. He followed it and found a spiky blonde and a curly green head. The boys looked familiar, but he couldn't put a finger on where he had met them. Izuku could see what they were feeling. It was written all over their faces. He alone knew everything. Izuku needed to get away now. Kachin, could you let go of me? He asked. Let go, let go. Fuck you, I'm not. Bakugo shouted. Aizawa raised an eyebrow at the two. You've been fucking gone for 2 years and you want me let go? Do you have any idea what happened to your mother? What the fuck is wrong with you? Aizawa was being completely ignored. I do, I visit her every day. Just not normally. Izuku replied, trying to break free. Bakugo wasn't letting go. Izuku sighed in disbelief. He was an idiot. You both know that there's a possible drifter around these parts, Aizawa said, gaining their attention. I'm going to kill the bastard when I see him, Bakugo shouted at the pro. The drifters won't harm you. Izuku sighed once more. He needed to get out of this and fast. But Aizawa was right here. It would probably be his only chance at the moment. Izuku broke free and stumbled back. Aizawa caught him and then Izuku's hand began to glow as he burns the mark onto him. Bakugo freezes. Aizawa drops to his knees in pain and Bakugo finally moves, but Izuku was now long gone. Did he really just see what he just saw? Was he the villain that saved him? Aizawa pulled up his sleeve to find the drifter symbol tattooed onto his hand. That only confirmed that Izuku was the one who saved him. Once again Bakugo was at home. His mother was fuming now that a pro hero had brought him home. Right after you got attacked and marked, she said. She was both worried and angry. Masaru Bakugo sat clenched fist on the sofa. Thank you, erase your head, she thanked the pro. No need for the thanks, but I'll have to ask your son some questions. He seemed to have known the drifter. Itsuki froze and Masaru. Itsuki, what have you been doing? She asked, fearing the worst. Nothing, old hag. When I get my hands on that bastard I'm gonna kill him, he says, shouting. But then his tantrum suddenly dies down. Mitsuki and her husband were confused in their son's sudden change in mood. It was Izuku, mom, he says. Is the one who saved me and marked me. He gave erase your head one just now too. To prove the point, Aizawa pulled up his sleeve to show the D and the feather. He turned into a villain. No. That can't be. The boy always wanted to be a hero. Inko. No, no. Kitsuki are lying. This is definitely the kid I saw, Aizawa says, handing Mitsuki a photo frame. It had little Izuku and Kitsuki. The time when they were 4 and barely knew anything about the world. Suddenly she got a call. It was from the mental hospital. She dropped the phone. It's Inko, she says to her husband. She runs out immediately, her husband and son after her. Erase your head following behind. Mitsuki, what happened? Masaru shouted. Inko. The doctor said she was attacked. Just like that, the family was off. Being the pro hero, Aizawa followed them. When they arrived at the scene, they found Inko staring out into space. Aizawa asked what happened. They said she was screaming in pain and then when she stopped the drifter's mark was tattooed on her back. That damn bastard did it to his mother as well, Bakugo said, almost shouting. Izuku was in the room. It was time he planned into action. This day was the day his life had changed and so he decided this was the day he begin his plan. He was going to mark Bakugo's parents. They were sorta like family. As he reached out his invisible hands he didn't count Aizawa to be there. Aizawa spun and kicked. His foot hitting Izuku in the chest. Izuku flew back and crashed a table. The Bakugas turned to see and found a teen in black and a plain mask. Get out. Aizawa ordered. Masaru carried Inko and ran out, his wife following from behind. Bakugo stayed with Aizawa. "Did you too?" Aizawa shouted. "This is damn Deku, he can't beat me," Bakugo retorted. Bakugo was dead wrong. Izuku charged at him. Aizawa could only suppress a number of quirks at a time. When he realized the villain had more than the maximum number he could erase, he knew this would be a problem. The single blow to the gut in Bakugo was out like a light. Izuku knew it would take a lot to take out Aizawa, and he wasn't skilled enough to take him down, even though he knew most of his moves. He stuck a needle in him. Instant sleeping drug. The man dropped to the floor. He wasn't fast enough to react. At the same point Masaru had came back to help but was greeted with a hand on his shoulder as Izuku burned the drifter's mark onto him. The man screamed. "Masaru!" Mitsuki screamed and Izuku launched at her. Masaru tackled Izuku, his mask falling off. The couple stared at the young boy they once knew to have been their son's friend. The bright green eyes the boy once had were dull and lifeless. Izuku picked up his mask and placed it back on his face. "Izuku," Masaru said, walking to him, but was greeted with a fist to the gut. It surprised him at how strong this frail-looking boy was. Like his son that had suffered from this blow earlier, he too was out. Mitsuki tried to fight back but ended up getting grabbed and having the mark burned onto her shoulder. Mitsuki let out a shriek and dropped. She stared at the once innocent and hero-loving boy. How did turn into this? Before she passed out, she witnessed him take off his mask. Izuku's eyes sparkled with tears. "Sorry auntie, please take care of mom. I won't be able to visit anymore," and with those words heard she was out. Tsukachi Namasa had a hard time trying to piece the puzzle together. The drifters were a troublesome group. They were villains taking the law into their own hands and killing of each other. They went after the villain and heroes too. Petty criminals and so forth. And now the leader of them all had just attacked and marked a local family with a pro-hero. The child was marked during the day. He was attacked by a villain and held hostage. The leader of the drifters was at the scene and killed the wanted villain. Marked the boy and left a burning mark on the wall. The boy then runs into Deku, as he would call him again that night. Pro-hero Raisher had found the man that was attacked and marked. The mother of the villain was also marked by him, and the parents of the boy and another woman. The wife of the No.2 hero. Endeavor was furious. Calling in to the detective demanding him to give all the information he had on the boy. The man sighed and continued on with his work. He kept on looking at the picture of the boy. In the photo he had a bright sunshine smile while with his mother. He was quirkless, but then had a quirk. Midoriya Izuku was a mystery, but he felt as though he knew the boy. His friend Yagi Toshinori, or better known as All Might, sat before him. "Have you ever encountered someone like this?" Namasa asked. "We are not making this public because if it gets out the leader is doing this, then the lackeys will do the same." "I agree." The leader, from what the young Bakugo has said, was a boy he once knew. "Ashi, have you ever met him?" Namasa asked. The feeling of knowing this boy was nagging at him. "No, I believe not, unless you're talking about my attempt to capture him after killing the sludge villain." "False." Namasa looked up to his friend in surprise. The man never lied to him. In fact, he was terrible at lying. "Ashi, you just lied," he said to him. Yagi looked confused. "What did he lie about?" "What did I lie about?" he asked. "You know the boy." "I don't think so." "False." "You just lied again," Namasa replied. "One question, is the boy familiar? There was something going on here." It seemed as his friend was lying without knowing. Either that or something was making him lie. "I'll be truthful so I can prove myself. Yes, the boy is familiar. It breaks my heart when I see him. It makes me feel as a failure. I too have a feeling of knowing the boy," Namasa told him. Now they were even more confused. The actions the villain was taking was confusing. Namasa thought it was random. Even Yagi, but the feeling of familiarity was their clue. It was as though they knew the boy but at the same knew nothing about. They decided to try and make contact. But how was the question? The villain had stopped coming to visit his mother and his whereabouts were completely unknown. Bakugo was mad. He promised that he was going to kill Deku. Even though he acted as though he didn't care for his family, it was quite the opposite. His family was the one thing he cared about most. More than his life. "Deku, you made a big mistake hurting my parents," he thought. Every time he looked at the mark tattooed on his chest he got pissed. It was as though it was taunting him. It was as though Deku was telling him that he was stronger. He was pissed. He had been frequently visiting Inko because she too was family. He felt disgusted. Deku had hurt his mom. He was a true villain in his eyes. As he made his way to the hospital, a certain dual-colored hair boy caught his attention. They were side by side and turned and faced each other at the same moment. Bakugo somehow felt annoyed as though he knew him. Todoroki felt as though he had met the spiky sand blonde somewhere. "Have we met before?" both asked at the same time. Bakugo grew annoyed. Todoroki thought, what a coincidence. "What are you doing here?" Bakugo questioned. He was now ever so paranoid about those around him. "I'm visiting my mother. I haven't seen her in a long time and came to check up on her to make sure she's safe." "Safe?" "She was marked by the drifter," Todoroki said with a scowl. "Guess we're in the same boat. I'm here to visit my aunt," Bakugo said, walking in. Todoroki follows behind. Things were really confusing for him. It was as though he had woken up one day and all his hatred for his father had disappeared. It was the same for his father. He had suddenly just changed one day. He became a better person. There was no more harsh training and he was starting to become part of the family. And so when he found his father raging for the first time in a long time, he wondered why. And so when he got the news about his mother, Fayumi tried her best not have the house burned down. She had to call her brother to help stop him and his father. The nurses was shocked to see Todoroki. Bakugo was confused, but shook it off. Apparently Inko's room was right next to the mother of Todoroki. When Bakugo entered, he swiped every corner to make sure no invisible villain was around. "Thank you, Kitsuki, but Izuku is not here," Inko said with a chuckle. "But aunt, that guy could be anywhere. He hurt you and your friend," Bakugo argued. "No, he didn't," Inko retorted, pouring. "Aunt?" Bakugo let out a sigh. "Izuku marked you as well. Haven't you wondered why?" she asked. This caught the boy by surprise. He hadn't questioned why he was marked, why his parents were marked, and why the pro hero was marked or the woman next door. "Is watching over us," Inko said with a smile. "Okay, aunt, it's time you got some rest." Bakugo helped her lie down after helping her with her meds. He walked out the hospital and waited for the dual-colored hair boy. Todoroki saw the sandy blonde at the gate. He wondered why he was there and walked up to him. "Bakugo?" he questioned. In that moment he realized something. He didn't know his name. The name just slipped out his mouth. "How do you know my name?" Bakugo asked. "It slipped out my mouth," Todoroki replied. This was confusing and annoying. It just made Bakugo more annoyed. "The bastard that hurt your mom, I know him." Todoroki felt himself get angry. Frost began to form on his right and fire on his left. "And I have feeling he's going to target you." Bakugo ended his statement and walked away, not giving a chance for Todoroki to reply. Izuku was following Todoroki, and so when he heard Bakugo warning Todoroki, he was impressed. And now Todoroki was going to be on high alert. He sighed and left the boy before he became weary of his surroundings and went to get Eri. Izuku had completely changed his look. His hair was shaved at the back and sides, his bangs fell to one side and was dyed black. He used makeup to cover up his freckles and used a quirk to change the color of his eyes to blood red. He wore black rimmed glasses to finish off the look. Actually, he needed them. Using the rewind quirk affected his sight. He guessed his vision was as good as Iida's. Eri had helped him with a look but went overboard and pierced his ears and painted his nails black. But it helped make him look unrecognizable. It was 10 months before the UA exam. Around this time he should have been training with All Might. He decided to take Eri with him for a walk. And so they did, to the Dagaba Municipal Beach Park that was no mountain of trash. Izuku sighed. "Be Kuro," Eri said. Izuku changed his name to Kuro so no one would recognize the name. Akagami Kuronisk was his new name. "Why is there trash everywhere?" "Because people are too careless and don't care of the environment." Izuku then thought of something. All Might used this place to train him, why don't he do the same to Eri? "Eri, why don't we train your quirk here?" Izuku said, excited. "Really? You get to learn how to control your quirk and we get to clean this place as well. After that the beautiful beach will return." "Yay." Eri cheered, and so they got to work. Searching through all the quirks he had, Izuku found something similar to Eri's. He actually grew a horn the left side of his forehead. "Are you my brother?" Eri questioned. Izuku thought of his answer. "Well, not by blood, but you can say I am and will be forever and always," he said with a smile. Eri cheered so happily. The quirk he used was the opposite of Eri's. It sped up the time of an object. He wondered if he could speed it up for a living thing, and so he tested it on a plant. His horn grew and the plant aged till it wilted away. It was also a stockpiling quirk and the exact opposite of Eri's. Izuku decided that this would be Akagami Kuronisk's quirk. When cleaning they found some reusable goods. Well, it was after Eri was done with it. Izuku, also practicing on his quirk, ended up being fought by Eri instead. As months went by, the beach was almost clean. Izuku had attacked and marked his former friends. He started with Mineta. Well, he was actually already knocked out when he found him. Must have groped a girl and got whacked. The guy didn't feel a thing. Though Koyami was a problem. He was out for a walk and it was dark. Izuku couldn't find him anywhere during the day, and so he jumped him in the night. Dark Shadow put up quite a fight, but Izuku managed to get past him and mark the shadow user. Haminari and Siro were already friends, and so it was easy to find them and mark them. Just knocked them out and did the deal. Todoroki was difficult. Make matters worse, his family was there with him. Izuku ended up marking them all. Endeavor and Todoroki's brother gave him a lot of injuries, and Izuku had to wait till he was fully healed. Once that was done, he proceeded to marking them all. Eri helped a lot. With her control getting stronger, she healed Izuku. And now it was time for the UA exam. Izuku was still going to attend the school. It was best he got into the hero course and try to change everything. Nezu was bound to figure out something, and so he decided to get help from the principal. Things had changed. Now the beach was finally cleaned, and Eri and Izuku stared at the beauty that was once hidden. Eri was finally fully able to control her quirk, but Izuku still had trouble. Later that morning, Izuku and Eri stood at the front gates of UA. He couldn't leave Eri to be alone, and so he brought her with him. "I don't think we're supposed to be here," she said with a worried face. Izuku placed a hand on her head and got down to her level. "Nai-chan is just going to take the exam and will be back. You'll have your wait here." But Eri looked worried. She was worried for her brother. "Nai-chan will be surrounded by heroes and..." "Don't worry about that, Eri, you will be safe, and I won't let them find out that easily." Izuku led the way and then decided to look for a teacher to take care of Eri. Instantly he ran into Izawa. He prayed with all his heart, mind, body and soul. The man did not recognize him. Izawa stared at the black-haired boy. He had a horn growing out from the left side of his forehead, and he had blood-red eyes. There was a little girl about 8 or 7 with him. Silver hair, horn growing out from the right side of her forehead, and once again blood-red eyes. They must be siblings, he thought. They both looked awfully familiar somehow. "Sorry sir," the boy said, apologizing. "But I was hoping someone could watch over my sister while I take the exam." "Why didn't leave her at home with your parents or something?" Izawa asked, sounding annoyed. "We live alone, our parents died a while back. We're supported by a distant relative that's not in the country," Izuku said, coming up with the perfect lie. Izawa now felt horrible. He let out a sigh. "Name?" he asked. Izuku chuckled in victory. "I'm Akagami Kuronisk, call me Kuro. My sister is Akagami Eri. She'll be in your care for now," he said, bowing politely. He ushered the small girl forward. Eri didn't seem to be afraid of the man. It was as though she knew him. She knew he would protect her. Just as much as Izuku would protect her. She felt safe with him. She smiled warmly and approached the tall man clad in black. Izawa was taken aback. Kids were usually afraid of him. But he shook of the feeling and took the girl away to the staff room. Izawa Pav. This year's candidates looked quite good to some of the other teachers. But what caught my attention was that some of them had something in common. 2 of the recommended students had the drifter mark. Something fishy was going on. Everything felt strange. As though I had lived through this already. I shook of the feeling and knew it was impossible. The girl, Eri, clung to my pant leg and watched the exam. Everyone wondered why I brought in the kid and just explained the situation. My eyes were plastered on Akagami. His quirk seemed to turn the robots to dust. No cause it to age and turn to rust. The horn on his head grown considerably more. I looked down to the little girl. She was watching her brother closely and looked worried. Akagami seemed to be waiting for something now that he had collected enough points. He was sitting on one of the tall buildings in the area. Everyone decided to release the 0-pointer. It then clicked. The boy was waiting for the 0-pointer. The moment it rose was the moment it met its downfall. Akagami's horn had grown to the point it was the size of an antelope. Because the robot didn't go on rampage. There was minimal damage in the area. Not many were injured. Everyone in the viewing were gawking. Akagami doubled over and clung onto his horn as he screamed in pain. Some others tried to help him, but he moved away quickly and growled at them. "Well, that's not very heroic," Vlad King said. Some others nodded. "Nai-chan is trying to protect them," the little girl spoke up, gaining the attention of everyone. "Why is that?" Nezu asked. "Right now if someone touches Nai-chan, they will age and turn to dust. That's why he's keeping away." "Okay, now that's dangerous." "Izawa, you go quickly," Nezu said, and I followed suit. The girl still clung to me. When I finally got to the boy, his horn was still quite long. The moment I was about to erase his quirk, he leaped back quickly and growled. Eri ran to her brother. I was about to stop her and feared the worst when she reached for the older boy. But nothing happened. The girl activated her quirk, and her horn grew. From what I could tell, she was trying to help him. The two looked as though they balancing each other's power level. Their horns grew smaller and smaller until it looked like the original bumps on their hand. Akagami stood up wobbly. "Sorry for troubling you, erase your head," the kid said groggy. "So you know who I am?" I asked him. He seemed suspicious. "I like underground heroes. Man, I don't feel so good. If I knew what a hangover felt, then this would be it." "So you're saying you were drunk on power a few moments back?" I asked. He snapped his head up. Hey yeah, that makes sense, he said, sounding cheery. He turned and saw a girl in brown. His eyes seemed to have brightened up a bit and there was an emotion in his blood-red eyes. Something associated with familiarity when he saw the girl. Hey you, he called out to her. The brown-haired girl turned and looked at the boy. Are you okay? Did you manage to get away from the boy? He asked. Yes, it's thanks to you, so thank you, the girl said with a smile. I noticed she was pulling down her sleeve. And noticed a certain dark marking. Another one, I thought. That day I followed the teen and his young sister home. Nothing seemed out of the ordinary until he suddenly appeared before me with a knife to my throat. The moment he saw me he buckled over onto his knees. Erase your head, you scared the shit out of me, he huffed weakly. I was holding onto my throat. If he was faster and didn't notice me, I would have been beheaded. That's my line, I retorted. I would have been dead without having time registered. Oh dear God, this kid was dangerous. Why don't we serve you dinner as an apology for jumping you, he offered. I accepted. They really did live in a small apartment by themselves. Now I needed him to explain why he was armed and ready and how he got right in front of me. Not a lot of people know I'm following them, care to explain, I asked, drinking a cup of coffee the kid made. Well, it's just me and my sister after all. I needed some way to protect ourselves, he stated. True, I nodded. Also, we both have some traumatic experiences that we don't usually talk about, and as a result of that, we have high levels of paranoia. The kids did look quite paranoid when walking. And how I jumped was that I waited for you to get close after you noticed that we disappeared from your sight. You got me there, kid, I admitted. Analyzing a situation and then acting. With the skill to kill. He went for the kill. Something really bad must have happened in his past making him edgy. I noticed a drifter mark on his hand. Care to explain that, I asked. He quickly covered the mark. The boy looked nervous and sat down. His bangs shadowed his eyes along with his glasses. I was attacked a while back. Me and Eerie. I tried to defend, but the person was stronger than me and gave me this. He also gave the same mark to Eerie. And why didn't you report it? It was quite a hassle, I mean the guy just gave us this mark. He didn't come back or anything after the kid tried to defend himself. Also, they would have wanted to call our guardians and stuff or probably think it was a joke, so I didn't bother. Tell me about your quirks, I asked. Their quirks had caught my eye and I decided to change the subject since the kid didn't want to answer truthfully. He just looked a bit stunned. I had a thought that the drifter leader may want to use these siblings' quirks. I wondered what Midoriya Izuku was trying to do. Izuku and Eerie stood in front of the UA dorms. Izuku gulped down his saliva. Eerie held onto his hand. Nai-chan will be fine, she tried to reassure him. Her shaking as she said that didn't help the villain teen. The two didn't have much and they allowed Eerie to stay with him in the dorm. Maybe it was because of the quirks. Yeah, it was definitely that. The moment he opened the door, all eyes were on the two. Izuku sweat bullets. Eerie hid behind his leg. You must be the last one, Iida said, appearing before him. I am Iida Tenya, you are. Akagami Kuronisk, call me Kuro, Izuku replied, holding out his hand. Iida took it and shook it and welcomed the black-haired teen and the silver-haired girl in. Everyone was there. Izuku felt like crying. He needed to hold it together. Hey there, welcome to the door of Class 1A. I'm Ashido Mina, said Ashido with her bright smile. Ah, it's you, Uraraka, Achako said, appearing before him. He was using all his willpower to hold himself back. Sure, he saw at the exam, but he had passed out before he could talk with her more. Izuku just smiled. Everyone sat around in the common room. Everyone. Izuku sat with them, Eerie sitting beside him. Is she your younger sister, Yaoi Rozu asked. Ah yes. The principal was generous enough to let my sister stay with me, since there is no one to watch over her, Kuro replied. So we got a Siskin bastard in the class, Bakugo snickered. So we have a prick in the class, Izuku retorted. He was going to make it hard for him to see through his facade. Bakugo snapped. It was the first time someone retorted confidently at him. The hid before him reminded him of Deku. It pissed him off greatly. Say that again, damn fucking four eyes, Bakugo shouted. Izuku quickly placed his hands over Eerie's ears. Do refrain from cursing in front of my sister, Izuku kindly stated. Yeah man, calm down, Karishma tried to calm the fuming boy. Would like me to show you to your room, Iida offered. Thanks man, Izuku replied and followed with Eerie. After unpacking everything, Izuku and Eerie made their way down to make something to eat. At the same time, their to-be homeroom teacher called for a meeting in the common room. Izuku was nervous, as was Eerie. Aizawa stood in front of them all. He saw Akagami and his sister, Bakugo and others. Aizawa paused. Wait, you're our teacher, Bakugo asked in surprise. Something wrong with it, I shot back. Shouldn't you people be looking for Deku? Bakugo shouted. I noticed something. The Akagami siblings flinched. The girl more so. "Who's Deku?" someone asked. "The damn drifter leader," Bakugo snarled. "Wait, you know him?" Kaminari asked, walking up to the angry blonde. "There is a reason why you all were put into this dorm. We were originally planning to have you all move into the dorms by the end of the semester, but the reason why we had you guys move in now was the high drifter activity." Everyone sat and listened. Izuku and Eri pretending along with them. Drifters won't move unless Izuku gave the word. Crime rate may have dropped because of them, but they too are criminals. And you all have been marked by the leader. We haven't gone public with the identity of the drifter yet though. What? If you know who he is, then why aren't you arresting him? Iida yelled while doing his hand movements. Because his missing Akagami spoke up. Everyone turned to him. Even Bakugo. He seemed slightly stunned. "You know Deku?" Bakugo growled. "It was a long time ago, he was always bullied and I'd talk to him, the guy up and disappeared 2 years ago." "Wait, is the leader of the drifters?" Akagami pieced it together. "The guy never talked about you," Bakugo replied, not trusting Akagami for a second. "I too couldn't trust him." "Did you ever give him a chance?" Akagami shot back. I noticed the way he interacted with Bakugo seemed off. As though he had known him for quite some time. Nezu mentioned to keep an eye on him. Keep an eye on all of them. There was 21 of them. Usually there would be only 20 students, but because a student with the ability to brainwash anyone and was also marked, he was moved to the hero course. Akagami was the most suspicious of them all. "The leader's identity is Midoriya Izuku." I pulled out some pictures and passed it out. He was said to be quirkless, but he seemed to have one when we first met. Everyone looked at the pictures. All of them except Bakugo looked confused. "Can this scrawny kid really be the leader?" Shiro asked. "It looks like I could take him," Jiro added. "But he got you instead," I retorted. "When we begin classes tomorrow we will be having a test. I can't threaten you with expulsion with the current situation, but I can give you more work." The students cringed and didn't question the man, and with that the meeting was over. Third person Pav. Izuku suddenly felt a pain in his chest. Like someone stabbed his heart. He buckled over onto his knees and onto the floor. "Boy, dude, you okay?" Kirishima asked, panicked and moving towards him quickly. Izuku quickly picked himself up and tried to reassure everyone he was okay. Aizawa grew more suspicious. Bakugo and Todoroki as well. This isn't going so well. Eri came to her adoptive brother and dragged him back to their room. "Drifter has fallen. A wound to the heart. Cannot be treated." The drifter was an active vigilante that went by the name Twister. He was a good man. Why didn't he call for help? Izuku remembered the time he came across him. A simple man who wanted to be a hero but failed his exam. He was a good man. Izuku told him after he marked him, he would be part of the drifters. He told him if he ever needed help, he just needed to call for it. He was in Hosu. Of course. Izuku contacted the drifters in the area. It was a telepathic connection that was possible because of the marks. The drifter has fallen. Retrieve him and look for his killer. Do not let him see your blood. His name is Stain. Those with type blood O will be more formidable against him. He has killed many. Many were heroes. Remember, not all heroes are evil. He will strike again. He may be hunting us. Proceed with caution. Be safe." Izuku ended. Many of the drifters were good people. Like Twister. And now he was gone. Izuku laid in his bed after tucking Eri into hers. He just stared at the wall until sleep finally claimed him. The next day finally came. He woke Eri up so that they could get ready early. Eri still needed to go to school. But everything was now a bit too difficult. Now back in UA, Nezu decided to tutor the child. Izuku told Eri not to answer any personal question about him, their fake parents or their past. Eri understood. Iida was the first to be up. It wasn't surprising, not at all. After dropping Eri off at the principal's office, they made their way to their classroom. And then waited for everyone while talking. The door then slid open and Bakugo stood before them. "It's the 2 4 eyes," he snickered, then went to his seat. As everyone began pouring in. The class began when Aizawa finally arrived. Time skip. Akagami Kurinosuke waited anxiously to see his teacher, his mentor. The man came yelling and bursting through the knot like a normal person. All Might. He missed his master. All Might Pav. I walked in and noticed young Bakugo was there. Young Akagami sitting behind him. I somehow felt sad. I felt as though he shouldn't be here but someone else. I shook the feeling away. How could a teacher feel like that towards his student? I have already passed on one for all to young Mirio. I felt as though I was betraying someone. Everyone seemed familiar except young Akagami. It was like a puzzle. One piece was missing and there was a piece that didn't fit. It was the piece was damaged. I brought the children to the training grounds. And explained the training. They seemed to have understood it quite well. And the first round was young Akagami and Uraraka as the heroes and young Iida and Bakugo as the villains. I and the other students watched them closely. Young Akagami looked as though he had done this before. He was calm and collected. The moment young Bakugo tried to surprise attack him, it looked as though he was expecting it. Akagami took on Bakugo and Uraraka went for the bomb. I watched young Akagami turn young Bakugo's gauntlets to dust. He subdued him and tied him up with the capture tape. He predicted all of young Bakugo's moves as though he knew it. All of us were gawking at what looked like immeasurable skill. We watched as he joined up with young Uraraka. The two charged at young Ida and the bomb. Young Akagami after the villain and young Uraraka after the bomb. Young Ida was about to move, but the floor disappeared from beneath him. The heroes remained afloat. Young Akagami threw young Uraraka to the bomb, securing it with her quirk before it fell with young Ida down to the bottom floor. Hero team wins. I announced. This was too much of an easy win, when I thought about it. Well, that's how it went, I told everyone in the teacher's lounge. Well, that's amazing, Mick voiced. What's so wrong about that? I'm not sure, it's just that the way he handled the situation. I can't help but feel as though the boy needs to be watched. I spoke my thoughts. The kid is always armed and ready. I also think he should be watched, Azawa added. I almost lost my head to him. What? Many of us screamed at him. The kid was suspicious. I followed him home after the exam, he figured I was trailing him and he jumped me with a knife. If he hadn't noticed me sooner I would have been dead. Azawa said calmly. I agree, the boy needs to be watched, Nezu said walking in. The Akagami siblings are hiding something. By the way, there has been a lot of drifter activity lately. A hero has managed to capture one. Detective Namasa is currently on the case. Namasa Pav. This will probably be the case of the century, I thought to myself. I looked up all the information I had on Midoriya Izuku. His mother was a simple housewife. He was a simple plain quirkless kid. A huge fan of heroes and quirks. Was bullied while growing up. His father wasn't in the picture. Was said to be working abroad, but no information in Hisashi Midoriya came up. No picture. No letter or anything. It was as though the man didn't exist. I had some people with mind quirks test Midoriya Inko, and the results were that some of her memories were altered. I was mentally exhausted. Could Midoriya's father be a villain? Is that why he's a villain? Many questions keep popping up, and there was no clue or answer. Now I was going to go interrogate this drifter. The drifter was just an ordinary kid. Was found beating a tug with his quirk. The quirk was called Top Dog. Basically he can control the minds of all canine animal. It would have been that dangerous if the kid hadn't used Mixer's dogs that had quirks. It was rare for animals to have quirks, but it was possible. Look at Nezu. I sighed and entered the room with the kid. His pets were being held in a pound for now. The kid had a mask and refused to remove it. His vigilante name was also Top Dog. So, Top Dog, mind telling me how you became our drifter and why? Like I'd tell you, scum, the kid retorted. Tell me why and your reason why you attacked that man. I decided to threaten him. Your pets, they're dangerous. We're planning on putting them down. If you cooperate we may change our minds. No, don't, leave my dogs out of this, the kid snapped. You know it's illegal to use your quirks against other citizens. Well, it doesn't stop them from using it against us, the kid retorted with tears in his eyes. Everyone treats us like trash, we're just getting the justice we deserve. Everyone that stands up high and mighty, hiding behind their fake smiles and all. The ones that look down to people like us, the weak, the lost, the quirkless. We're getting justice for us all. We are going to bring down those high and mighty bastards. That man that I attacked, don't you know of the things he does to his daughters? The kid growled at me. Everything the kid was saying was true. I sighed and pinched the bridge of my nose. Tell me what you know of Izuku Midoriya. Never heard of him. True. Then tell me what you know about your leader. The boss doesn't do kindly to those looking for trouble with us. He cares about us even though he knows nothing about us. We don't know what he does or what is planning of who he is. He's like a ghost to all of us. Everyone don't even know ourselves. Everyone's our mystery. We only have one rule and that's always look out for each other. Don't you know of the mafia gang that was destroyed a while back? That alone was the boss. Everything this kid was saying was true. How powerful are you, Midoriya Izuku? Just then I heard the boy gasp. I looked up and noticed the boy was staring at something behind me. I turned, saw another kid with a plain white mask. Before I could even react, his hand came down my shoulder. It became to burn. I dropped to my knees in agony and willed myself not to scream. Officers watching burst through and began firing. The bullets came but then just dropped to the floor. Midoriya walked up to Top Dog and placed a hand on his shoulder, and just like that they were gone. Are you okay? Sansa sawed coming to my aid. I nodded. I guess I was marked as well. I began to wonder who else would be targeted. Third person Pav. Boss, Top Dog exclaimed as they were in an alley with two neon-colored dogs. Izuku sighed and looked at the boy. The boy was taller even though Top Dog was in his second year of middle school. Izuku felt defeated. It's a pleasure to meet you again, Top Dog, Aka Atsushi Inugami. Okay, kid, calm down, Izuku said, sounding relaxed. But how did you know I was a pinch, asked Top Dog. Izuku pulled up his sleeve and revealed his mark. There's a reason I marked you after all, Izuku said with a hidden smirk. I need to go now, he told the vigilante and teleported back to his bedroom. He made sure no one was watching and changed back to his normal attire. Class had ended for the day and everyone was doing their own thing. The girls had stolen Eri away from him and was playing dress up. Izuku decided to go out for a walk. Before he did, he took a look in his reflection. Maybe some more black dye was needed. A chain hung around his neck. He pulled it out to see and regret and grief flooded him. On the chain were 2 lockets. One gray ties contained the memories of those around the world. The memories of the previous life. The other was multicolored and kept changing. This was contained the memories of those who knew him. Villain, hero, friend, family, and so forth. If either was opened, the memories would flood back to their owners. If that happened, there would be chaos, grief and pain. But it would be his fault cause he wasn't strong enough. The reason the locket containing the memories of those who knew him was multicolored was because the emotions being held within it was very powerful. It kept leaking out and thus everyone having a remnant of a memory of the past life. Or the life they had already lived. He sighed heavily, placed it back safely around his neck and left after telling Eri. Almighty Pav. I had gone out for a walk. As I was walking, I saw young Akagami. I decided to try and have a little chat with him. He probably wouldn't recognize me, but it was worth a try. He looked down. You alright, kid? I asked. He snapped his head up quickly, let out a startled shriek, tripped on his own foot and fell on his butt. I chuckled a bit and helped him to his feet. Didn't mean to scare you. No, sorry, it's my fault for not being alert. Was there a reason for you to be spacing out? There are many and yet there are none. Boy, this kid was cryptic. I'm Akagami Kuronisk, call me Kuro, he said with a warm smile. It reminded me of someone. Someone I feel like I had lost. Someone I didn't know. Yagi Toshinori, call me Tashi, I mimicked him. We both let out a chuckle and continued our walk while we chatted. It was the oddest thing, really. It felt as I had done this 1,000 times. Hey Tashi, can I ask you something? Young Akagami asked me. I looked down at him and nodded. It may sound strange coming from someone you just met, but if you had the chance to change something in the past, what would it be? I looked at the boy in surprise. He was right, it was strange to ask. I thought about my answer and then thought of my master. The woman I saw as a mother. If only I was strong enough. I'd save a dear friend of mine, I told the boy. Young Akagami nodded in agreement. His seemed to be filled with determination. I wondered why. What would you do? I asked. The boy looked at me in surprise and smiled. I'm going to save everyone. Thanks a lot, Almighty, see you at school. Before I could ask about his answer, he called me by my hero name and ran off. I sat there dumbstruck. Holy shit, how? I broke from my trance and searched for him. Izuku Pav. Sorry, Almighty, I said and ran off before he could catch me. I guess I was too slow. I got picked up and next thing I knew I was on a building. How did you know? He asked my. Hahaha. You see, your hair, your eyes and your voice with your height. Make you buff and wah. La. You have an Almighty, I told him. I miss spending time with my master. I won't let you die this time around. You or anyone else. You're a bright one, he complimented. I don't deserve your praise, I said, sounding down. I really didn't deserve it. You are a mystery, young Akagami. I said you could call me Kuro. I'll call you want I want. Gee, I said with a sour look. All of a sudden his phone began to ring. I suspected it was Namasa. Almighty didn't seem to have known he got marked. I needed to think my plan through. I was thinking about maybe telling Izawa and giving him his memories. I needed some else in this. And maybe Kachin. He probably hates me, but I wonder if he'll understand after I return his memories. He's going to figure it out sooner or later. I mean, out of everyone in class he pays the most attention. Though it doesn't look like it. Todoroki, sorry bud, you're an airhead. Young Akagami, why don't you head back to the dorms before it's late, Almighty told me. I listened and left him be. When I arrived home, everyone was sitting around the common room. Eri was with Tsuchan and Uraraka. Of course she would be with them. Tonight I would be going out again. I'm going to start cutting down the numbers of LOV. Dabi was the one I decided to go after. Todoroki's missing brother. If possible, I'd make him a drifter. I'd give back Kachin and Izawa-sensei's memories as well. Everything would come back as a dream, and throughout the day they'll piece it together. As the time went by, it was finally time. Eri was tucked in bed. With a quirk I created a being to watch over her. It had a mind of its own and always lurked in my shadow. Its main objective was to protect Eri. I made sleep in my bed to make it look like was in it and teleported to the top of the dorm building's roof. I took out the memory locket and concentrated on Kachin and Izawa-sensei. A crimson-red glowing orb floated out and immediately searched for its rightful owner, and another black orb did the same. Izuku wondered what their reactions would be. I really don't want to see his face. Izuku Pav. It was amazing. I couldn't find Dabi. Kachin definitely seemed to be out of it. I'm really sorry, I mentally apologized. He was shaking and looked like he was trying to hold back tears. You okay, buddy? I asked. Leave me alone. He yelled at me and ran out. Dude's really moody today, Kaminari joked. Izawa-sensei then walked in. Why do you look more tired than usual? I asked. Already knowing the answer. It's none of your concern. Izawa Pav. I had the most horrid dream. Was it even a dream? In the dream I was with my class. Everyone was in my current class was in my class except Akagami. In his place was Midoriya. Midoriya. I couldn't help him. He was my student. He was the problem child of this class. He was the most heroic of them all. Those weren't dreams and I knew it. Eri was in there. I wondered why I'd dream about a girl I didn't know. The girl was like my own daughter. That's why I had a sense of familiarity. Something happened. The last parts of my dream was Midoriya activating a quirk making him glow brightly. I knew it wasn't a dream. They were memories. Midoriya used a quirk to rewind everything. I knew Akagami knew something. He was definitely an actual drifter. The memories came back quickly and one night I needed time to process it. Today the press would break in. There's a traitor and USJ will be attacked. Right now I knew the drifter mole. I needed to do something. I couldn't hold back my anger. I was angry at myself, angry at the boy in front of me, just angry at how much of a horrible teacher I am. Akagami outside now. The whole class looked at us confused. Did I do something wrong? I activated Erasure to make a point he ain't hiding anything from me anymore. The moment I did, I knew. I almost buckled over from surprise. The police and heroes were running all over the city looking for him, but he was right here. Midoriya. All the class was present except Bakugo. I can deal with him later. I walked away and he followed. When we were out of earshot I turned to him. What are you planning? I asked. What are you talking about? He replied. Damn it Midoriya, stop playing this torture game, I shouted pulling him by the collar. I was angry. I was glad. This kid was really a problem child. Hahaha. Hi, I'm sorry he apologized and I let him down. Let's talk where no one can hear us he said and tapped my shoulder. Next thing I knew we were in the roof of someplace. I looked around and noticed it was a hospital. The hospital where his mother was being held. Where do you want me to start? He asked. From the very beginning I told him. And so he began. He sat on the rails as he told his story. I was born quirkless, at least that's what we all thought. My life was that much fun, but it was okay. It was okay thanks to my mom. And Kachin. Even though the guy was a big bully. Midoriya quirkless was shocking. I was shocked because I didn't know he was. Remember the sludge villain? He asked me. Last time this kid interfered and almost got killed if it weren't for All Might. This time around he killed it. After that incident, All Might made me his successor. I had figured that out already. Stuff happened in UA and some really bad things happened. Ingenium gets injured really badly, you get injured badly, All Might, Mirio lost his quirk, Night Eye dies. He sighed. Everything was a mess. And you got kidnapped, I added. I was never able to figure out who the traitor was. I was trusted with that knowledge and I guess I got targeted after knowing. What happened after you were kidnapped? Last time Bakugo was kidnapped because the League of Villains thought they could make him join them. The reason to Midoriya's kidnapping was a mystery none of us back then figured out. They tried to control me. Make me mindless, he continued on with his tale. But thanks to my quirk, I was saved from becoming like that. But that didn't stop them. They made me kill innocent people. And some friends. He leaned back over the rails. He looked as though he was contemplating whether to let himself drop or not. I only watched him. I remembered how broken he was back then. But something wasn't adding up. Are you talking about One for All? I had to ask. The boy gave me a sad smile and I dreaded what he would say. I actually had a quirk. The doctor lied to me and my mom. My quirk is exactly like my father's. From what Namasa said, Midoriya Hisashi didn't exist. Nobody. Pav. Who is your father and what is your quirk? Kazawa asked the black-haired teen. Izuku leaned back further back on the rails. His body almost tipping off. A heavy silence had been cast between the two. Only the rustling of leaves and the wind was heard. The silence was finally broken with a deep sigh coming from the teen. The older male waited patiently for the teen to begin speaking. The kid had gone through enough, he had thought. He may be a villain now, but Aizawa couldn't see him as one. He saw him as a hero. He saw him as his student. He saw him as the problem child of his class. He saw him as his problem child. And so the boy finally began. All villains have a past. I know nothing of my father's past. I don't know if he loved my mother or not. I don't know if he even cared for me or not. I don't know my father, but my quirk will tell who he is. And your quirk, Aizawa pressed on. The quirk I was born with. The quirk that I had active ever since birth and the one I never knew I had. He sighed heavily and looked up to his teacher. Staring directly into his eyes, telling the truth of his harsh reality. Is all for one. Aizawa stood frozen in his place. All for one. The all-powerful villain that had the ability to take quirks and give quirks. All for one is my quirk. When my father tried to create his ultimate weapon, as in me, he didn't think I would have his quirk. I gained all his quirks and things happened, and now we are all here. The boy shrugged his shoulders and leaned onto the rails. Shocking, isn't it? Izuku sighed heavily. He felt as though he was forgetting something. Then it hit him. I also gave back Kachin's memories. This brought back Aizawa. Let's get back already, you need to explain to him. Is going to kill me, Izuku replied, holding his neck. Now that he remembers, he's on the verge of breaking. You better go now before he loses it. With Bakugo. I came back to find Aizawa, and that damn horned four eyes weren't in the class. Next thing I know they are walking in. Seeing the horned bastard pissed me off. First All Might and then Deku. All Might died. And Deku. Deku got kidnapped and. I'm the reason All Might's secret was exposed before. I'm reason why everything started to go downhill. These marks this damn nerd gave us. Antinko was right. The bastard was watching over us. Damn it, what happened to you, Deku? Need some help there, buddy? I heard the voice of the shitty horned bastard come from behind me. Why the fuck is this guy here? Deku is supposed to be here. Hey Bakugo, I got pissed. Stupid outsider. I said leave me alone. I shouted at the horned four eyes. Everyone turned to us. Why can't they remember? Don't they remember? Why only me? Was it just a dream? Damn it, Deku, what kind of torture game is this? Fuck, this is all my fault. Bakugo, meet me outside, Aizawa called me. Seriously, you're calling me put because of this fucking outside? Deku is supposed to be here. Damn it all. It's all my fault. I met Aizawa outside in the training ground when we first had our first test. Deku did something. Everything is back to the way it was. He turned back time. Rewind. I didn't know what Aizawa wanted. You remembered, he said. I stood frozen and looked up to him. You remember too, I asked. Yay. The damn shitrag replied lazily. The guilt weighing on my chest was eating me away. I dropped to my knees and fucking cried. I couldn't hold it anymore. I watched my classmates die. Karishma, Kaminari. They died saving me. Everything was my fault. Deku gave us a second chance. I'm not going wasted. Fuck my pride, my friends and family are more important. But what the fuck, Deku? Did you have to really become a villain? It's my fault, I cried, digging up the ground till my fingers bled. I was the one that marked end of All Might. My friends died saving me. Deku become like that because of me. Everything is my fault. I hate this feeling. It was too heavy. Why was it so heavy? My chest was aching, my head was pounding. Everything was my fault. It's not your fault, Kachin. Deku voice came. I froze in place. I whipped my head around but he wasn't there. You're confused. The drifter marks allows telepathic communication. It's free to use once you figure it out. Fucking Deku, where the fuck are you? I shouted, angry tears running down my tear-streaked cheeks. Right behind you, I turned and saw the horned bastard. What the fuck? He can't be. What's the matter, Kachin? You look like you've seen a ghost. The bastard had the guts to joke, right? No. Then the name. I couldn't get off my knees. I shook and trembled to the bone. Haha. I changed up my look and used a quirk to change my voice and eye color and grew out this horn. I couldn't get up. How this guy standing? He suffers more than me. We have a second chance. Everyone is still here. They're back. We can change everything. I looked up to the nerd and saw him giving me a hand. We do have a second chance. I took it and pulled myself up. But I needed to pay this guy back for everything up until now. I have him a blow to the gut using all my strength. Deku didn't move back, but he did fall at his knees. What was that for? He asked in pain through gritted teeth. For last time, dipshit. I shouted. Now that you've mentioned it, came Aizawa's voice. The damn nerd got wrapped up in his binding gear. Extra training for Akagami, he said, and began dragging him away to another training ground. I remembered today we would be picking class representatives. I completely felt out of it. I'll just yell at them and say Aizawa chose shitty 4 eyes. Oh yeah, why was the nerd wearing glasses? Time skip. Third person Pav. Izuku was feeling like whack. Everyone was wondering why their classmate was looking like the dead. Izuku then got up and walked up to Aizawa. I'm going to recovery girl. I'm going to go foil the LOV plan on attacking USJ. Though I might not be able to stop them on my own and they might get through. Also smack some sense into All Might. I haven't given him a drifter mark yet. Oh yeah, if you're thinking they should go through it to gain experience. Don't worry, Rewind is like a time travel quirk where they remember everything. Just given the ability to change the past. The memories have been leaking so they'll have enough experience to deal with the villains. You talk too much telepathically, Aizawa replied telepathically. Izuku teleported himself to All Might's route of coming to school. Last time All Might used up his time and ended up being late for the lesson. This time around he made sure to have drifters around. He saw All Might making his way to the school. He created an explosion to get his attention. All Might took the bait. Izuku stood on the roof and All Might landed in front of him. Young Midoriya, you finally show yourself, All Might said with a scowl. Of course he's mad. Last he saw him he killed in public. What is your goal? The symbol of peace said, getting into his stance. Hold it there, bucko, you've already used up 2 hours. I'm not here to fight, Izuku said, trying to ease the tension. All Might was taken aback. He gritted his teeth. He knew his secret. How? He asked. I have eyes everywhere, Izuku simply replied. I'm not planning anything that would harm any of my friends and family. That being the whole lot of you and you with my mom and Kachin, my classmates the drifters and some others. I have no connection to you, All Might said. Slightly feeling a pang in his chest as he said those words. That's because I took that away. More precisely, I mean your memories, Izuku said with a smile in his voice. All Might began to calm down, but now he was hurting. He knows this boy. He knows they were closer than anything. He knows that he was one of the most precious things in his life. And it was just confirmed by him saying he took away his memories. All Might turned back into his skinny form and looked at the boy. He knew he was staring into his eyes. Tears began to trickle down his cheeks. Why, young Midoriya? Why are you playing this game? He asked the boy. It's you people causing this actually. Your emotions are so strong they are leaking out from what I had them locked in, Izuku replied with a sigh. He stood on the rails perfectly balanced. Also heads up, I'm the son of All for One. All Might stood frozen on the spot. His eyes grew wide. As a ghost pain on his side seemed to have come back as he reached for it. I have his quirk and that's all. I don't share his ideals, all I want is a world where the ones I love are safe. Also he has the grandchild of your master. And with that Izuku Midoriya teleported away leaving All Might baffled. Izuku appeared in a bar where a mist man stood cleaning glasses and another. Shigaraki Tamura. Instantly they jumped back in surprise. There was a screen there that had All for One on. Behind the plain mask Izuku grew a scowl. Don't think I don't know your plans, boy, and don't think everything is going to be the same as last time, said All for One. TCH, so you remember, Izuku spat. It is a miracle, now there's one that holds All for One and one for all, the villain says. I should have known since you weren't at your hideout when I went there, said Izuku. And so what if I have both? I'll be your end when I find you, Izuku threatened. Sensei, who is this brat, said Shigaraki Tamura, clearly annoyed he was being ignored. Tamura, meet my son Midoriya, Izuku. The leader of the drifters. Kurajiri, said Shigaraki, and on cue the warp gate opened a portal. The Nomu that was to attack the USJ came out and attacked Izuku. Kurajiri warped the two to the USJ where the students were. When they arrived, there were villains fighting against the students. They had sent them to hide earlier and ambush me. Damn you, All for One. The Nomu landed on Izuku, pummeling into the ground. Deku? Bakugo shouted as he charged at the beast. The class was confused as to why Bakugo was trying to help the villain. This time around the villains were stronger. Aizawa thought. He was pissed. Bakugo as well, and they had to send the Nomu as well. He hoped Midoriya would be able to handle it. Bakugo blasts the largest he managed at the Nomu. It barely leaves a scratch. He's pissed. He wasn't as strong as before. The Nomu launches at him. Izuku quickly intercepts, one for all at a 100% with other quirks active. With all his strengths he punches it and sends it back. He knows it's not going to stay down for long. It could have worse, he thought. Lady Luck was not on his side today, as two more Nomus were welcomed to the scene by the warp gate. Hatch and evacuate everyone, Izuku told Bakugo, who at the moment was getting ready to blast the beasts. What was that? Bakugo said, grabbing Izuku by the shirt. The Nomu without eyes launched at them. The beast hit nothing. Bakugo and Izuku had been pulled in by Aizawa's captured gear and was now in a tight circle. The injured were in the middle. All Class A was on guard. Bakugo, Midoriya focused, damn it, Aizawa snarled. Suddenly ice was sent at Izuku. Izuku set himself aflame and the ice melted away. He was now separated from the group. It was Todoroki who did it. The fuck half and half, Bakugo growled. What are you doing helping a villain that hurt your family? Todoroki shouted back at him. Izuku dodged attacks thrown at him by the other villains. A villain lands a punch and his mask falls off. Uraraka, who had been watching, looked over in horror as it revealed their classmate Akagami Kurenosuke. Everyone was in shock, allowing the Nomu with wings to strike. But Bakugo manages to blast it away and Izuku launches at it and punches it in the face. It got sent back into the other Nomu. Izuku rejoins the group. Akagami? The group questioned. Izuku looks away, not wanting to meet their eyes. You're a villain, asks Uraraka, who had tears in her eyes. Her heart was breaking. She didn't know why. She had only known him for a short while, and so what were Theseus feeling? Listen up, the others will be here soon. Akagami is Midoriya and he's on our side. The reason he attacked you all was so he can mark you with the Drifter mark. He'll explain the rest later. I am here, All Might's booming voice came. And in an instant he was down there with all the students. He blasted all the villains away save for the Drifter and the Nomus. All Might, you take the eyeless, Midoriya you take the first one, and I'll take one with the wings. All Might was confused, he looked over to Akagami and finally pieced it together. Young Akagami was Midoriya. Hi. Sensei, Midoriya called out to Izawa. This confused everyone but Bakugo. Izuku handed Izawa a knife and the both charged up to their Nomus, and so did All Might. All Might had kept on blasting his beast with over 100% punches. Izuku was using multiple quirks. Izawa was dodging his Nomus attacks. Until all three were finally able to end it. All Might sent the Nomu out the facility to God only knows where. Izuku had made his hand into a blade and shoved in through its chest, and with the same quirk he had used on the sludge villain, the Nomu exploded to bits. Blood and gore covered the boy. As for Izawa, he had managed to wrap up the beast. This Nomu didn't have any regeneration ability, which was a lucky because instead of killing it, he had slit main tendon. The beast couldn't move and he was mercilessly letting it bleed to death. And on cue the other heroes had arrived. And got to work. Izuku got shot in the shoulders and legs. All Might and Izawa were about to charge at whoever that did this. They all looked up to see Snipe. I forgot about this, said Izuku as he was bleeding out. Last time it was Shigaraki who got shot, he groaned in pain. Good thing I got the regeneration quirk, he said as he slowly sat up once more. Young Akagami, what are you, asked All Might. And Izawa-kun, were you always acting with the villains, asked All Might as he stepped over to the students that were confused. Bakugo had moved over to Izuku and Izawa. Eraserhead, said Mick, coming to the scene with the other heroes. They were now on two sides. They all had taken stances against them. The three nonchalantly looked at them as though they didn't pose a threat. This made the heroes tense up until Nezu pops up. Midoriya-kun, would you care to explain, asked Nezu. Izuku leaned back. He was covered with blood and gore. A lot of the students had already turned and gagged. Bakugo, after gaining his memories back, didn't seem bothered along with Izawa. He's seen a lot of gore. Izuku leaned back, holding onto his knees. It will be a pain, so I'll just show you guys after a shower. He got up and walked away, just like that, with Izawa and Bakugo behind him. Once finally cleaned, Izuku sat on a chair and spoke with Nezu in his office. All pros were present. But the select few of the students. Todoroki, Ida and Yaoirozu. And so Izuku began. So to cut the story short and keep it simple, I used a quirk to rewind everything, 6 years back. So you're saying you time traveled, asked Vlad King. Not sounding my convinced at all. Yeah. I sealed all your memories into these lockets, Izuku says, pulling the silver and multicolored lockets out. The multi holds the whole of Japan and the silver the rest of the world. A quirk like that should have some serious drawback, said Midnight. It does, my vision deteriorates every time I use it. Though I've only used it once, Izuku says. I can give them back to you all, but please, you beg you, try not to make a scene. Especially you, All Might. Though I'd like to have the rest of 1A as well. All Might was slightly taken aback. And by his request all of 1A was brought in. Nisa's office was quite big for such a small thing. Everyone kept their distance from Izuku. All except Bakugo and Izawa. Izuku smiled sadly and clenched the multicolored locket. A number of orbs started floating out from the locket. The room seemed to have gotten dark and they all were marveled by the sight. Each orb found their rightful keeper. The moment the orbs entered their bodies, they doubled over with a headache only to rise with tears. Tears and horror-struck features. They all remembered. They looked up to Izuku. All Class A were crying waterfalls. Stop looking at me like that, Izuku said, sniffling. He had tears in his eyes as well. First to move was Ichako. She embraced him. Izuku felt her warmth. The warmth he hadn't felt in a long time. You're not alone anymore. She cries. Izuku hugs back and cried into the crook of neck. He had been alone for a long time, dealing with the guilt of hiding the truth. Everyone began to join in as they cried. The teachers watched with tears in their eyes. Some were trying to help All Might stand. He was taking this really hard. He left his successor when he wasn't ready yet. He went through pain and had to turn to the dark side to save everyone. Bakugo looked over to Kirishima and Kaminari. He could finally thank them. He could finally get this pain of his chest. Bakugo tried to speak, but nothing came out. He wasn't used to this. He could barely form the words that he wanted to speak. Kaminari and Kirishima got the message and tackled the lighter blonde, crying and holding onto each other in their bro hug. All Might finally stood and walked on over to Izuku. The group moved out the way. Izuku looked away. He failed his mentor. He looked away too in shame of what he had become. "I'm sorry Al." Izuku was cut short by All Might pulling him into a hug. "Nothing changes my boy," All Might say with tears. Izuku missed his mentor. He was the father he never had. "Izuku, remember this my boy," All Might say, pulling away and looking straight into Izuku's watery green eyes. "You're my boy," he says as tears ran down his cheeks. "You will forever be my boy. You're the son I never had. You're my son." Not as he tells Izuku with a smile. "But look at what I've become," Izuku says. He covers his eyes with the palms of his hands, not wanting to see the disappointed look on his predecessor had. The look that he doesn't have. All Might pulls him into another hug. "You've dyed yourself in darkness to save the light," says All Might. "You're a hero no matter how I see it. You may think yourself as a villain, but you still have the heart of a hero. It is just as young Uraraka said All Might as he breaks away and pushes him into his group of friends. "You're not alone anymore." Everyone embraces Izuku and the boy lets out all his pain. The pain he had been dealing on his own for the past 2 years. He was with his friends once more. He was home. Later that day, Izuku went to face her. Bakugo was there with him, Eri holding onto his hand to support him, and Todoroki as well was there to encourage him. Of course Mitsuki and Masaru. Bakugo was there and attacked the teen. Izuku deeply apologized. On his knees, bowing his head down. Bakugo explains everything to his parents, and Mitsuki embraces the boy in a motherly hug. It was then time for him to face her. Inko Midoriya wasn't the plump woman that he once knew. Izuku saw just how much his disappearance had done to his mother. Izuku turned invisible and tried to walk away only to be stopped by Eri, who was holding on to him. Eri looks up to where his eyes may be. "Deku, you can do it," she says. Izuku remembers Ichako's words and smiled. He was once again visible and walks into his mother's room. Inko was staring out over the trees that surrounded the hospital. In this state she was in, she was looking for her baby. Her Izuku. She heard the door open and close. She believed it was Rei or Mitsuki or even Kitsuki. She heard the person take a deep breath and let it out, sounding somewhat scared. Tears began to well up in Inko's eyes. She knew who it was. She didn't want to turn around though. She feared it was a dream. An illusion. She believed her ears were playing tricks on her. She closed her eyes. She felt the figure walk to her. She feared to open her eyes. Feared that it wasn't him. Her heart was breaking. It felt so real. Izuku knew his mother was afraid to see if this was a dream. She hadn't seen him in a long time. He had changed so much. He feared what his mother would think. There was only one thing that had always been constant in Izuku's life, and that was his mother's support. Izuku took a deep breath. "I am here, Mom," he says with a tear-filled eyes and a smile. Inko opens her eyes to see him. She reached out and felt his cheek. He was here. He was back. He was real. Her baby was back. She cried and embraced him. Her baby was back in her arms. Izuku missed his mother. He cried freely onto her shoulders. They held each other tight, truly afraid they may fade away from each. Inko began to calm down and stroked her son's hair, who was still crying and apologizing. Izuku missed his mother's warmth and fell deep into it, sobbing gently as the event of the day was finally taking its toll on him. Izuku falls asleep in his mother's embrace. Eri had went up to him and cuddled up with him. Inko didn't question it. If she was Izuku, then it just meant that her son had saved her. Outside, Todoroki had gone to his mother. Mitsuki had been watching and Slight felt a pang of jealousy. Old hag Bakugo shouted at his mother. An irk mark appeared on her head as she was about to knock her son on the hand, only to be surprised by what her son does. He embraces her and holds her tight. "I love you, Mom," he tells her. Mitsuki is baffled and has tears in her eyes and hugs her son back. Masaru got jealous and joins in. Bakugo wouldn't be able to go through what Izuku did. Everything that had happened once had made him open his eyes. He'll cherish and protect the ones he loved. "So what now?" Bakugo asks. Everyone was gathered around in the common room. Aizawa and All Might with them. Even Night Eye. He was still processing everything. The big three as well. Nobody wanted to think about what to do next. They didn't want to openly state what would happen. They didn't want to state what will happen to their friend that was a true hero, but was also a murder villain. We take down All for One, and then I go to Tadara's, Izuku plainly states. No. Uraraka shouts. This shocks Izuku but not everyone. She had taken his disappearance and kidnapping far worse than anyone. She was in tears, she was now crying on her knees. Su-chan immediately comes to her side and tries to calm her down. Bakugo knocks Izuku on the back of the head. Fucking read the mood first, dipshit, he scolds. Izawa, All Might, Night Eye and the big three remained quiet. That was the only answer they could think of. No matter how much it hurt, that was the only answer. I'm sorry, Uraraka, Izuku apologized. After what he has done so far, he didn't want to be free. He wanted to go through what every villain has to go through. He was a villain after all. Though of course he knew it was going to be painful. You're not going there alone, everyone looks up to see who said those words. It was Kaminari. Why? Izuku questions. Kaminari was his friend. He was in the same boat as him. He didn't want to spill his secret. If you have to go through hell because of your father, then so should I. Kaminari. Jiru calls with tears in her eyes. I'm sorry but I can't let him go at it alone. Everyone is confused. Bakugo, Kirishima, Ashido, Shiro and Kaminari's partner in crime Mineta, we're dreading what their blonde friend would say. My dad was a villain associated with All for One, I am the traitor and the spy, he confesses. Everyone is shocked and now had tears in their eyes again. Now they were losing two friends. The USJ incident was my fault and so was Bakugo's kidnapping. I stopped there because everyone got hurt. But they threatened my family and also you all if didn't continue to work, Kaminari looked down in shame. Izuku had killed many and Kaminari had betrayed many. But unspoken words both acted together. On their knees, heads bowed low onto the floor as was their hands. We deeply apologize. Both say in tears. Our apology right now means nothing, says Kaminari, but still. We have to Midoriya finished. We don't deserve your forgiveness. The die two boys with good hearts and blood. To make them shamefully apologize to their peers in such ways, All Might begins in a low voice as steam begins to escape his skinny form. Is unforgivable. All Might's smile was now gone, angry tears poured down his eyes. Young Midoriya, young Kaminari, raise your heads. You don't deserve this. You are the victims that are suffering the most. All Might no. Izuku says, shaking his head. I killed because of All for One. And so did I, says Kaminari. I'm the villain, static. Once again everyone is shocked. Considering the villain rankings, the leader of the drifters was a SS rank and the villain static was a S rank. Their activities had died down, now known for the obvious reasons. Two villains strong and skillful enough to take down the heroes in front of them were on their knees apologizing to the heroes. Midoriya has an excuse since he didn't know the first time, I don't. Dipshit, you died saving me the first time. I'm not letting you go through hell, Bakugo shouted with tears. Today was an overstressful and emotional day. You too, Deku? He shouted. There should be a way to give you guys a second chance, Night Eye suggests. Let's think about that after we take down All for One, as Awad interrupts. We have an advantage of knowing, and so that gives us a start. Not exactly, Midoriya says, shaking his head. He remembers, and just like what we are planning, he too is going to change up everything. Kaminari, any ideas, as Awad asks. They cut me off right after I entered UA. This time around I didn't give them the coordinates, and I didn't know they were attacking. It must have been All for One who gave it to them, Kaminari cringed as he spoke. Though he did ask to look through my head. I didn't know why and I had no choice since it was an order. If only I knew, then I wouldn't have let him. But Midoriya had the memories trapped in that locket, Kirishima says. This is All for One that we're talking about, Mirio says. The big three had been quiet up until now. Sir can't seem to read the future as well. What? Everyone questions. It's not that I can't see the future or my quirk is not working, but someone seemed to be preventing me from using it. No matter how many people I think of, it's All for One that always pops into my head, says Midoriya as he rubs his temples. A war is coming and it seems like we'll need to build up an army. Everyone looked up to Izawa. He was right, a war was coming. The Nomus, I bet they are going to be concentrating on mass producing them. Both the high-end and the normal ones, Kaminari said in a tone that many though he wasn't capable of making. He was calm, collected and serious. Izuku nodded. In our current state we can barely go up against the league. They will be getting new members soon. I was trying to recruit some of them into the drifters. You mean the bastards that kidnapped me, Bakugo snarls. Yeah, just the other night I went out to look for Dabi. Why him? Todoroki asks. You haven't figured it out yet, I guess, Midoriya says with a sigh. Dabi is your missing brother, Tuya Todoroki. Shadow Todoroki freezes on the spot. My brother? Todoroki asks. That can't be, he says in disbelief. I'm sorry Todoroki, but Dabi is who I say he is, Izuku adds. It's true, says Kaminari. How do you know, Shiro asks. I got word of the new recruits after sending the location of the camp. Just cause I act dumb and like an idiot and all doesn't really mean I'm one, he adds. I looked them up and found out about all of them. Himiko Toga was easy since she used her actual name. That one wasn't one of the brightest but still scary as hell, Kaminari shivers. Even though he was stronger than her. They only entered the league because they believed in Stain's view, that because Stain had joined the league. Until you idiots took him down, Aizawa says with narrowed eyes looking at Izuku, Todoroki and Iida. That means my brother can be saved and still be a hero, Iida exclaims. A genuine happy smile filled with relief spread across his face. I sent drifters to look for them, but this is Stain and Dabi we are talking about. I just told them to send the info and not engage. I already lost a good man, Izuku says in regret. That reminds me, where's the detective Namasa, and I still need to mark some of you guys. I called him earlier. He should be here tomorrow to get things sorted out properly, says All Might. Thanks you guys, Izuku says with a sad smile. What for, asks Shaoji. For not looking at us any different after learning the truth about us, says Kaminari. What are you saying? We all have been through hell together, dying even. We all were always friends, says Satu ruffling the shorter boy's hair. So then what's the plan, asks Todoroki. The drifters will look for Stain, and Dabi Aizawa began. From now on we'll be training you in preparation for the war. Considering the power of the Nomus and the fact the villains are going to make them stronger, even students will be involved in the upcoming battle. The big three, Night Eye and All Might, even though not liking the idea, agreed because it was the truth. Midoriya and Kaminari from now on will be assisting while training at the same time. Midoriya, I believe you already have a plan going on in that head of yours, Aizawa accuses, and he was right. All for One is really powerful. I'm still not experienced enough to control all the quirks together, but I've gotten the hang of taking quirks and giving them. Basically, to summarize, my plan is to take away all of his quirks. That would be impossible. Impossible to hold him down long enough to take away his quirks, that is, says Night Eye. True, but there are other ways to take his quirk away. Midoriya, you're not planning on using Eri, are you? Mirio asks, sounding concerned. Midoriya turned to the oldest blonde student in the room with a mortified look. That thought didn't even cross my mind. No. God knows I'd never, he said in utter shock. Our victory will solely rely on teamwork and a secret weapon that I finally figured out. I still have my first quirk from before this surprised All Might, Mirio and Night Eye. Now there was currently 3 holders of the quirk. My best guess of the move that the league would be making is a mass kidnapping. Lowly thugs and villains will go missing. Bodies of people will also start washing up. All for One will be looking for, I quote, interesting quirks to add to his collection and give the Nomus. Ragdoll from the Pussycats will have to be put under protective custody. Our families as well have to be moved and put under protective custody. The location of All for One is currently unknown. The only hideout they let me know about was the bar, says Kaminari. Considering the type of monster of a man he is, he'll be hiding in plain sight. The students and the adults in the room stood in amazement as they watched and heard the blonde and green-haired teen speak. Both teens spoke like veterans, strategizing a battle. Veterans they are, as they were villains. The fact hit many of them hard, but they listened to them nonetheless. Heroes and villains was just words. What defined a person was their heart. Dying themselves in blood of people evil to the core with no redemption to protect those that are innocent, one could say that was a hero. That too will have probably been abandoned by now after Midoriya's fiasco. We have an advantage though. What is it, Static? Asked Night Eye. The man still had to get to know the students' names. It was understandable. We have time, the boy says, looking into the eyes of the hero. Making an army of Nomus will take time and a lot of resources. We can use that time to train. Since we already have the dorm systems going, it will be easier. This will include all the heroes courses and probably support courses as well. But we'll have to go day by day like we always do. We still have the sports festival and cultural to the training camp. Hopefully by doing this we could throw the league of and also keep the public in check. You make a valid point, Kaminari, so does that mean we'll also have to go on to the internship programs? Asked Tokoyami. The risk of being kidnapped are high while they are treating you guys as guests. I'll give each of you the memories of those you'll be interning with as way to spread the word as well. You guys will then be the one to explain to the situation, Midoriya explains. Why can't you just release the memories now, Mineta asked. If I do that, the nation will be thrown into panic along with the world. All for One destroyed half the country, remember, this was when we weren't expecting anything. Now that we are, we can be better organized and ready for when they commence the attack. Iida finishes. The adults and the villain teens nodded in agreement. So we will be the ones to spread the news to the higher up heroes as well? Tamaki asked. The teacher's priority will be protecting UA grounds and their students, and so won't get the chance to move freely, and we can't bring in the heroes without a valid explanation of what is going on, says Najire. It will be up to the interns to spread the news. We are all grown-ups in the body of our younger selves, we've changed in mind and matured, I'm pretty sure our supervisors will listen after we give them their memories back, says Yaoi Rozu. But what about you two, Shoji asked. This time around we won't be interning, Kaminari answers. Along the way of discussing, I thought it'd be best the two of us travel to the underground to collect information and recruit some more people. Everyone looked at Midoriya as though he was crazy. This no longer a battle between heroes and villains, Kaminari said, gaining their attention. Japan is our home and we'd do anything to protect it and the world. Villains also have a home and family, you know. Many of them are just like me and Midoriya. Some of them are actually innocent and framed by villains we call heroes. Of course we're going to give them a choice to either flee or fight. But looking at the odds, many of them are going to force themselves to fight. Even the innocent ones. This is a battle to protect our home and lives against a greater force. In war there are no heroes or villains, only a victor and the defeated. You boys matured too fast for your age, All Might says sadly. Being tortured changes you, Midoriya says sadly. Dying in my case, Kaminari says, flashing his goofy smile. But we're still the same person, Midoriya says, flashing his smile. But both of them were sad smiles. This resulted in the whole of CLASS-1A now including Shinsu to dogpile them. You kid said it better than I could, Nezu says, popping out of Izawa's scarf. Everyone looked up stunned. As the principal, I'll grant you permission to use any training grounds, in fact the training will start as soon as possible. I'll also pull some strings and have your families move onto the campus. UA will be enough to accommodate for them if they wish. The students smile at their principal and dive to catch him and cuddle him. The dog, bear, mouse thing dodged effortlessly. He had heard everything and the strings he was going to pull weren't the only string he'd be pulling. Training commenced the day after. Everyone had the skills from before the rewind, but their body weren't the same. Izawa wanted to see how strong Midoriya and Kaminari were. Midoriya, Kaminari, Bakugo, Todoroki, he called to them. The four quickly trotted up without question. Everyone was now curious as to why they were called up. I want to see how strong the two of you are, he motioned to Midoriya and Kaminari. Midoriya, you will be going up against Todoroki, and Kaminari, you will be going up against Bakugo. Everyone wasn't sure if their teacher's head was on right. Bakugo and Todoroki were the strongest in their class. Let's see what S rank and SS rank is like, Izawa finishes. Reminding the class about the fact that two of the students with the brightest smiles were actually villains. First up was Todoroki against Midoriya. There was no word spoken. Todoroki knew this wasn't going to be like the first sports festival. He was up against someone with multiple quirks. He could use any, and he'd be screwed in seconds. When Izawa gave the signal, Todoroki was the first to blast a glacier at Midoriya. Midoriya had disappeared but appeared from beside Todoroki out from the mist of ice. The red and white-haired boy stood baffled and quickly activated his left side. Midoriya dodged with speed. Izawa frowned. The class was confused why. The two were fighting equally. But little did they know, Midoriya wasn't using any of his quirks. Todoroki shot ice at Midoriya. The battle was reminding him of the battle with Stain. He was trying to keep him away. Panic moderately rising. Unlike the beating his father used to give him during his training, this was different. His father usually knew when to stop. The aura Midoriya was giving off spoke of certain death when contact is made. He created a large ice shield in front of him as he got ready to use his left side. Midoriya went head on, destroying the ice with a punch. Todoroki shot flames as a last attempt of defense. Midoriya ducked low, avoiding the flames and kicking the boy of his feet. Todoroki landed on his back, and before he could get up, a red sneaker slammed aggressively centimeters away from his head. A hand at his neck. The attacks were all over the place. The stronger and more power you put in only results in missed shots. Even though you're mid-range fighter, you should have some knowledge on close combat, Midoriya spoke. If this was a real battle, he'd be dead. Everyone was left dumbstruck. Izawa was still frowning. Midoriya didn't even use any of his quirks. Next up was Bakugo and Kaminari. No hard feelings, Pikachu. Bakugo shouted. Yeah, I'll have to show the real me, I guess. The battle between Midoriya and Todoroki was a 50-50 chance, leaning on both sides. A lot of them had their bets on Bakugo. All except Todoroki, Izawa, Midoriya and Jiro. She and Uraraka had been quiet for some time. After this they together would have to talk with the villain teens. Bakugo was first to launch at Kaminari. Bakugo thrust a hand forward toward the boy's face. His face was straight and emotionless as he just simply moved his head out the way. The Bakugo he was watching everything in slow motion. The smoke from the explosion hit the two boys. When it cleared, they weren't expecting what they saw. An instant win by Kaminari. Bakugo was flat on his stomach. His right hand was face down on his back, Kaminari holding it in place. His left was face down next to his face being held by Kaminari's bootleg. The boy's other hand was on the lighter blonde's head holding him down. Bakugo was in a dangerous position. If he tried using his explosion he'd hurt himself. If he tried moving he'd be knocked out in seconds with Kaminari's quirk. In fact he knew if this was a real battle to the death he'd be dead right now. Having a million volts blasted to your brain is certain death. Not everyone is Kaminari. It all happened so fast. Kaminari grabbed his hand and moved back, kicking the boy of his feet, slamming him into the ground by the head and then stomping on his free hand. He was waiting for him to make the first move. It was instant defeat on his part. Instant victory for Kaminari. Now hard feeling Bakubro. But your arrogance will be your downfall and that of others. Bakugo was reminded by Kirishima and Kaminari's death. Don't underestimate your opponents with that. The boy flashed his goofy smile and helped the sandy blonde up. There's going to be a whole lot of blood, sweat and tears this time around, Midoriya says as he looks over his class. Kaminari walked up to him with his hands behind his head with a smile. We won't be going easy on you. Not anymore then, as always says, appearing behind them and then slamming their heads together, making them drop in pain. What was that for? The blonde shouted. The two of you didn't use your quirks. You said you won't be going easy, and yet you did, Todoroki added. Well, that's one thing, another you'll have to make us use our quirks. You're going have to give it your all to make us use our quirks, so till the sport festival it's going to be hell. Izawa has tainted these boys, a certain skinny man thought, shivering in his boots. That's it guys. Thanks for watching and supporting us. See you in the next part.